Hello and welcome to the Horton Group's One Thing podcast. I'm Robin Bettenhausen and I'm here with
Tom Kallai
and our esteemed guest, Eric Holtrop. So Eric, I don't know if you know this about me, but when I was in, I think it was 6th grade, and I was going to a small private school, I had the opportunity to meet Ruth Ozinga. She actually was a leader for me and probably 7 or 8 other girls in the school, and completely sort of changed and shaped my life in her advice that she gave us and helped me grow personally and also spiritually. So that makes me even more excited about today getting to learn a little bit more about the Ozinga Foundation and how you're really honoring the legacy of Ruth and Marty and others. So Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself and also about the Ozinga Foundation.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks, Horton, for having me here. It's great to be here, and I view it as a privilege to represent Ozinga. And I myself went to Timothy Christian High School. From there, I went to Trinity Christian College in Palos Heights, Illinois, which was the first time I heard the Ozinga name. When you park on campus, one of the first things you see is the Ozinga Chapel. And you're always kind of like, oh, who's that? And kind of wonder, okay, maybe I'll meet some of them. And sure enough, there were 2 Ozingas at Trinity when I was there for a short time. And the backstory there is their grandfather, the current owner's grandfather, was on the original board of trustees to help start the school. They thought it would be very needed and valued to have a Christian college in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. So they were involved with the college from the very beginning to when I went there, and they're still involved now.
That's awesome.
And then, so, talk more about myself?
Yeah.
So I'm the current director, first non-family member to manage the Ozinga Foundation. And Ozinga itself, we're right down the road in Mokina, close by Horton here. And we're close to 2,500 employees. The main core business is ready-mix concrete. If you're on the road and you see red and white trucks, that's us, the red and white ready mixers. And very happy to be here.
Awesome. So, Eric, the Ozinga Foundation's been around for, is it almost 30 years now?
Yeah, correct. So the Ozinga company, we'll call it, or the empire, if you will, it's 95 years young. We just celebrated our 95th anniversary last Saturday evening. We had a picnic, so all the coworkers and their families got to go out and just socialize and spend time with one another. It was a very fun day. Celebrating just the history of the company and then going forward. It is a 5th generation family business. So the current owners are generation 4, and there are 6 brothers and a cousin. And in 2012, their parents handed over the company from the 3rd to the 4th generation. And the vision is to do the same thing, from to go to the 4th generation to a 5th generation business. So this past summer, there were 5th generation family members interning at the company. So the company is 95 years young, and the Ozinga Foundation was founded in 1995. The primary reason there was as the company grew, assets grew, foundations give you the flexibility to make some larger gifts as well as transfer funds and let them sit and accrue or earn interest versus just always donating from the business account. Mm-hmm. And so in 1995, the owners had this strategy, let's actually create a foundation, a family foundation. And it's been used since then.
Very cool. So you have a portal that people can go and request to be considered. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Robin. So the way that we're structured is there isn't an OzingaFoundation.com page. We flow everything through the business. And most of our donations are actually made from the business account. Very few gifts are made from the actual foundation. The foundation has almost become more of an asset holding entity. One of the reasons being is the family tends to be somewhat private in donations, so we like to do things anonymously. And when you donate through a foundation, everything can be seen online. You just search Ozinga Foundation 990 and you look up our giving history. So as a strategy, what we've done is we make very, very few donations from the actual foundation, and most of our gifts come from, we call it like a donation account of the Ozinga business. So if you go to, and I'm sure I'll get flooded with requests, which is a good thing, www.ozinga.com/giving. It's a web portal we created, which I love the website itself. Just holds me accountable and lets the board see how many requests come in, and just tracks how long it took to respond. And then it also enables me, because I can be forgetful, where was I at in the process? Did we receive the request and then I reached out and I scheduled a Zoom call, or I'm maybe going out there in person, or is it some request where they're asking for the same amount as last year, we can just approve and fund it. But it enables us to hold me accountable, but then also helps me to see where things are at in the process. So
Sure.
as things progress, I update the status and track it that way.
Because it's not as easy as just pushing a button. There's a lot of
No.
follow-ups, I'm sure.
I wish it was easy to put in,
Yeah.
but it's not.
So, Eric, I am lucky to know you and your family really well, and I know your heart for giving, and I see the generosity that your family has. So, what's the most rewarding part, just given that you personally love to give, of working for the Ozinga Foundation?
Yeah, so what I really view kind of as a blessing is I found a vocational call that I do something that I'm very passionate about for a family that represents my values. So when last February, so February of 2022, Ken Cook, who's a close friend of both of ours, he reached out to me and let me know that a job was going to be opening up at Ozinga to look for someone to be the foundation director. I was like, oh, that sounds like a really cool job. At the time, I was doing banking with a primary focus of nonprofit banking and cash management. And I was like, I would love that. I did fundraising in the past, and I was like, that would be great. So when you work for a family foundation or a company on the giving side, you want to be able to represent their values and I would just say represent their family really well in all aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that is to make sure that what you would want to give to aligns what they'd want to give to. So stepping further back, the Ozinga family it comes from a Christian Reformed background, same as myself. So a strong component of being a Christian is wanting to give back, do better. One form to do that is tithing. And so the company is set up where we tithe at least 10% of pre-tax profits to local nonprofit organizations. And our giving is to both faith-based and non-faith-based organizations.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Which is exactly how I do my giving with my wife. So we have the majority of our giving will go to churches where our kids go to school, which is a Christian school. But then there's amazing organizations that help individuals with special needs or veterans causes. And so the giving of Ozinga and their heart really aligned well with mine. So it was almost like a perfect match. And I hope they think the same thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's really when you are a foundation director, you have to think of, okay, is this something that aligns with my core values? And then if it does, you just kind of have the privilege of joyful generosity where,
right.
I'm able to, approve donation requests to just incredible organizations that I myself would not be able to do. So I feel like I get to give on behalf of my company, but I have a lot of self-pride and joy in what we're doing also.
Right, because that 10% is 10% of a big number.
Yes.
It's not a small number.
Yes.
So that's really, really cool.
Yeah. And how that came about is, so Marty Ozinga IV, he's the current CEO. I've heard him talk about in 2012 when the third generation passed the company on to the fourth generation. One of the things that they said was non-negotiable is the giving. So that's something that the third generation was doing, their grandparents are doing, their great-grandparents did, is always giving back. And they really feel that they're stewards of the business and they're stewards of the resources, and that the cash or the money that the company has isn't the Ozinga family's, it isn't their own, but it's God's. And so one way to glorify him and to serve the crown of his creation, our fellow man, is to be generous with that. So when their father took over, when their father handed it to the current 7 owners, they said, all right, you boys are responsible for making money and I'll be responsible for giving it all away. So that was like his joke, that
I love it.
Continue to be profitable so I can continue to give. And so as the company grows, where I come to play is I'm able to give more away. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's great. I love that notion of non-negotiable is the giving. Like you could put that on anything. It looks great and it sounds great. And there's no shortage of nonprofits that are looking for help. And one of the ways that they look for help is from foundations like the Ozinga Foundation. So what are some things that nonprofits should know about foundations like yours that they might not know?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So I think that giving is very much a relationship. So we all know that it's very difficult to get a yes if there's no connection between the organization and the donor. We could send when I did fundraising, we could write the most beautifully crafted letter,
Right.
and you could make the best case about why your organization is worthy of your funds and how we would use them with wise discernment, and it's going to be a blessing to the people that would benefit. But if it's just a letter, it's very difficult because we all get so many letters. So, in the course of the day, I might get 12 mail solicitations and then about 6 requests on our website portal. So as a policy, we've 100% only gone with the website portal route. We talked about earlier the benefits of that for us just from a tracking and accountability standpoint.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, that's like, what,
Yeah.
60 a week minimum?
Yep, it's a lot.
So
It's a
multiply
lot.
that by 52. I mean,
Yeah, it's
it's a lot. There's a lot coming in.
it's fun and challenging. So it goes back to relationships. So for us, the fact that we have 2,500 employees rounded, there's a connection, maybe not with me or the Ozinga family, with our coworkers. So on our web portal, or just from a conversation with coworkers, it might be that a coworker has a child with Down syndrome, and their child goes to an after-school program until their parents are done working, and they pick them up. And that's a connection right there. That's a relationship we want to make.
Right.
Like, okay, there's a local nonprofit organization serving individuals with special needs, and they're being a blessing to our coworkers.
Right.
Or it could be as simple as, I know Robin's kids are very athletic. They're on the Frankfurt baseball team. Robin works at Ozinga, and she submits a request on their behalf for us to sponsor a Little League team. Those are very easy yeses, and there's this a connection right off the bat. Okay, where we work, where our coworkers live, there's an overlap. So we want to support those local ministries that are a blessing to our coworkers. So that's an easy relationship. To more of a personal level, where there might be coworkers serving on a board of a nonprofit, and then they introduce me that way to them. So it's
Sure.
the easiest thing, going back to I'm answering your question now, is the relationship side.
Yeah.
Because there are so many great nonprofit ministries just in the Chicagoland area alone. And if someone is just mailing requests or doing a cold call, it's really tough to establish that way. So I always say, find out who the donor is, or the foundation is, or the organization. What connection can you make, and maybe leverage that? So if it isn't Ozinga, but it's Horton, for instance, you find out that Robin works there and you work at a nonprofit, and kind of say, hey, I'd love to get together with you, or could you put me in touch with whoever manages your corporate giving, just so I could tell them more about the organization. And it might be a not now, maybe not a no forever because people are busy, but at least that seed has been planted where you've now heard of the organization. So then if they follow up with an email or a LinkedIn connection, you can be like, oh yeah, that was Robin's friend from Frankfurt. So it's very hard just to do it cold turkey, I would say, right off the bat. But if there is a connection, I would utilize that first. And then know the organization's values, or like maybe what type of organizations they would support. So our mission statement is to make a positive impact in the community. So we're very much focused then on local community giving. So if we were to receive a request from an amazing organization in Wyoming, I politely would decline it because we do not do business in Wyoming. So find out the where and why they give. And a lot of foundations, they actually have on their website, we want to give to these type of ministries and these areas. Some are we're going to give to Africa. Okay, well, I know that I'm in Illinois. I'm not going to be approved for that request. So use your time and energy to find one that wants to give locally to the Chicagoland area.
That's super helpful. I mean, I think most of us have done some fundraising, and it's good to know, like, if you're reaching out, what's going to be that right fit? So I think you kind of answered it, but anything you would say about like the things you wish applicants knew about the process besides that?
Yeah. So now that we've made a relationship, maybe we set up a Zoom call. I always say, before you would submit a request on our donation portal, let's at least had some interaction with me or someone in the company. Because once again, it'll trigger a memory. Oh yeah, I knew that one was coming in. Or if it's a coworker, I can contact them and say, hey, I got a request, and they put you down as a referral, so I can get back information there. And then once you're on the portal, you know, okay, that someone at Ozinga is aware I'm going to apply. Make sure that you follow the steps. I'm not going to knock on any organizations, but sometimes it's as simple as they didn't upload a W-9, and that's a requirement, and they attach some. I've received attachments that aren't even W-9, or it's like an About Us page, and that's great. They uploaded something, but they didn't upload the right thing.
Right.
And it's the
necessary for tax purposes.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, now you're going to have, before I even determine if this is a right fit, I would have to reach out to them for a W-9 when that all could have been avoided. So I always say, if you're going to spend the time to write a grant request, know the organization, know their values, know why they give, and then tweak your message to be crafted around that. So I always say the most important thing is build your case statement. I have a shout out to Barnabas and Jack Strawn. He really preaches that. So when you make your ask, really sell it. Sell your why and the benefits. So there's a real clear and concise understanding what the donation request is for and how it would benefit the organization or how maybe the funds would be used. So that it makes it easy for me or someone else in my role to understand, okay, this is where they operate, this is their purpose, this is what their funds are for, and then this is kind of their response time. Mm-hmm. So we have in our request portal, when's your deadline, or when would you like an answer by? So I kind of know, okay, this is quick, or it's 6 months down the road, this event or this project takes place. I have the time then to set up a Zoom call, and we don't have to rush it. One of the things that I know that the Ozinga family, myself, and probably most of donors, we don't like to feel the pressure of it. It's an urgent request. Sorry, things fell through things fell through, and this event is in 2 weeks. We're finalizing our sponsorship page.
Can you tell us today?
Yeah, can you tell us today when we need to check for next week?
Right.
And not saying that you wouldn't get approved, but it makes it less joyful to give in that manner when it feels rushed, or it's almost like you're getting a ComEd bill and it's due in 3 weeks. I gotta pay that immediately. You don't have a time to connect and learn about one another.
Right.
And there are some times though that an urgent request would be necessary. So if it's a local food pantry and their freezers went kaput.
Right.
Okay, well, that's an urgent situation. They're going to reach out to their current donor base saying, thank you for your past support. Maybe thank you gave it a gift this year. Unfortunately, it's really terrible news. Our freezers went out, and we're reaching out to all of our current donors. Could you each contribute $1,000 or $5,000 to rebuild our kitchen, rebuild our food pantry? So in those situations, it's like, okay, we need to act now because their ministry is in crisis. If they don't get a working freezer or whatever fits for the particular organization, they can't fulfill their duty. So we want to step up in those situations.
Yeah.
So if everyone else, plays the long game when there actually is a crisis situation, it's easier for myself or other foundations to manage. So great question.
Very cool.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned it feeling joyful to give. So from a personal standpoint, are there any situations or specific causes that maybe your eyes have been more open to through giving through Ozinga Foundation?
Wow, that's an excellent question. So I'll start off by saying one of the best parts of my job is every day I hear about some amazing organization, whether it's, we're in southern Wisconsin, Illinois, Indiana, and we're in the small tip of Michigan or Florida. Well, if it's a Florida organization, I for sure would have never heard of them before. Right. So I get to be blessed with hearing about some great organization from afar that I've never heard of before. And I would say for myself, being in this role has really uplifted me about Chicago. In particular, we always hear about high taxes, violence,
corruption.
Only the good stuff, right?
Yeah, teacher strikes.
Yeah.
And then you get the opportunity to meet and learn about so many organizations close to where we live and do business that are serving children in Chicago that are in such need, whether it's an after-school program or a mentorship program. There are so many incredible people, incredible organizations that never make the news. It's always
Yeah.
a shooting starts the news. I wish they would start with, local organization X served 45 kids over the weekend, or local organization provided, turkeys for 2,000 people, because those are out there, and unfortunately, negative press sells, and that's what we hear.
Mm-hmm.
But Chicago in particular has so much good going on that flies under the radar. So I appreciate the question, Tom, because I've been so blessed and uplifted by meeting so many different people and organizations. There's just so much good out in the world that unfortunately doesn't get highlighted.
Yeah. That's so neat. And I can only imagine the good things that you get to see in your inbox every day. And so stop watching the news. The whole reason for this podcast is positive and get this out to the masses, and maybe we can change that narrative a little bit. But Eric, I thought of one other thing, because my dad actually was in concrete construction. So I know we've talked a lot about the financial donations. Do you ever do in-kind donations?
Yeah, great question, Robin. Probably the funnest approval we can send is if someone were to request material support, whether that's concrete or aggregate stone or sand, being able to partner with on a project. So someone would apply the same way they would for a monetary donation. They go to the website, but as opposed to requesting financial support in the form of cash, they tell us about their project. So they typically will share who the general contractor is, about normally most of the time it's a building project. And, if this is approved, if the campaign goes through, we'll be able to go from serving 180 people a year to 250 people a year. So on the higher cubic yards, is what we refer to in the concrete world, the more cubic yards, the more concrete supplies needed. It kind of goes from to a rebate process where, let's just say someone's looking to build a new school, and it's, we'll say $500,000 of concrete. We do an analysis, all right, what would be our profit from that? And then we have a commitment to tithing at least 10% of local nonprofits. So the starting point for them would be they would receive the 10% tithe on their profit that they were paying for. So kind of tied back directly to the organization. And then for smaller jobs, so if, let's just say it's a good example, with a local VFW, they need a new handicap ramp, we would just we review and possibly accept a 100% donation in kind, because it's a smaller job, just fully donate the project itself. And the reason I like those the most is because sometimes we get invited out to a grand opening afterwards, and you can actually going to go see the physical impact you made. You stand there and be like, oh, this is pretty cool. Ozinga played a role in this building being put up. We're part of the foundation, which people typically don't see concrete, but we know it's there.
That's
and
really neat.
It's fun to go and visit properties where we partnered on. So thanks for asking.
It's really outside the box too, which is so cool and so different from what most people would think is possible. So just even knowing that that's an option where you could present that or propose that is super, super cool.
Well, Eric, we're so glad to have had you here. I think what's cool is that this is great to learn about the Ozinga Foundation, but also for our nonprofits that are tuning into the podcast today, just how you're going to approach foundations like yours, I think is really cool. I do believe you're going to have an influx of asks in your inbox, and I'm so excited for you to hear what else is happening in the community. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you being a part of it.
Thanks, Robin, and thanks, Horton. It was an honor to be here, and I wish you all the best.